Greetings, and I'm going to speak today about uh, free will. That's an issue that you know society has been working on for a long time, and we're not making a lot of headway with it. If anything, we may have come to the conclusion that there can't be free will. There's just no mechanism for it. Even though intuitive we feel that we do have free will. Maybe the best people have come up with is that we don't have free will, but we have to act like we do. But I would consider that, in our investigations and contemplations, if we get stuck or come up with paradoxes, we have to look at our basic assumptions. They may be faulty. Like if you go back to the Middle Ages, in Europe, people wondered, what are all these lights in the sky? And what is the moon and the sun? And why don't they fall down on the earth? So they just couldn't make much headway with it till some people came along like Galileo that kind of confronted some basic assumptions that turned out to be faulty. So one way we can find our faulty assumptions is just by chipping away at it. Science is based on clarifying assumptions, like hypothesis and test. And there's another way we might be able to identify some faulty assumptions, and that's by comparing our ideas with that from another culture that might have different assumptions, and that might kind of highlight what our assumptions are. So I want to compare our Western point of view with that of India. I chose India because it's an ancient culture as old as ours and has a well-developed philosophy that grew up not totally separate from ours, but in its own way. And it's also good that it's a lot of the ideas have entered our culture, and especially in the last 50 years. So their ideas may not seem as outrageous as they might have at first. So if we look at Western society culture, we might say that the basic idea is that we see the world as there's an objective world and a subjective world. The objective world is, the world around us, our physical universe. You might say our body's part of the objective world. Well, the subjective world is what happens inside us, our thoughts, our feelings, our perceptions. And so that subjective world is kind of ephemeral, and we're not sure where it comes from, if it's how real it is. We would generally agree that the objective world is the real world, and the subjective is kind of up for grabs where it comes from. Probably, I guess the objective point of view would be that it's all these things are just electrochemical processes happening in our nervous system, which is, you might say, temporary and always fluctuating. Now, there may be a lot of other philosophies, but people just sit and think about these things and come up with other philosophies that might be right or wrong. But push comes to shove, it's back to basics. It's okay. Objective, subjective. While in India, there's actually a different map of reality, you might say. If you start, describe the world, basically it starts with the five senses. We have our five senses: hearing, seeing, smelling, touching, and they create perceptions which we perceive. And then there's our thoughts, which could actually be considered another sense, and that our thinking mind is a perceiver of thoughts. So this is a big difference. The next step, the next part of ourselves would be the intelligence. The intelligence makes sense of the perceptions. We decide how accurate is this perception, this thought, which would be good to pay attention to, which would be good to ignore. Which ones are beneficial, which ones might be not good for us. So this intelligence is separate from our thoughts. In the West, they may be kind of joined together, mixed up together, but it's an important differentiation that, I guess with studying of meditation as we come into the world, we realize that we can sit somewhere or be somewhere fully intelligent and wide awake and clear, but not have thoughts in our head. They're two different things, intelligence and thoughts. Then we have the next part would be our consciousness. Now in India, this consciousness is much different. Actually, the English translation would be consciousness, but our Western idea of consciousness is somewhat different from the Eastern. The Eastern is just much more fully developed. Probably it's better to call it source consciousness, in the sense that the source of everything, something we perceive as consciousness as an individual. But this is the source of the universe, of all creation. What else comes up out of this source consciousness? So again, in the West, we kind of put thinking, intelligence, and consciousness all together as one thing, and we call it thinking. So you could see that, from the Indian philosophical point of view, there's more room for finding mechanisms for free will. Like in the West, there's not really any mechanism. Either it's caused by something or it's not. And either way, how could there be free will in it? So we can go from there. And there's also one other, I'm not going to talk too much about free will from the point of view of Indian philosophy. Or I'll just jump to another philosophy that I like and I've been working with that has an actual mechanism for free will. I'm not going to go into the philosophy, but I've just kind of given a hint of something that's might be a mechanism for free will. And that is, could say it's inherent in Indian philosophy and not totally outside Western philosophy. But that mechanism would be attention. We build our world with our attention. You could have two people in the same place speaking to each other in a room, on a city street, in the woods, and they're both there, but their attention is going to be on different things, and they're going to have a different experience, even though they're in the same place. And each of us, as we go through our life, puts our attention on different things, and our experiences are different. We build our world with our attention. So I'll say attention. Now, you could say that Eastern philosophy is built on meditation, which is really the training of attention. It's by learning to focus our attention, different things become possible, and our life can take a different track. Like a Zen teacher was asked to write a character for the most important thing in life. Zen masters would study calligraphy and write the words in Chinese characters of different things, for people to take home and hang on their wall or whatever. And so this person asked, what's the most important thing in life? And he wrote down attention. And the person said, oh, well, what's the second most important thing? He wrote down attention. So what's the third most important thing? He wrote down attention. It just highlights the importance of attention in building our life. That's why we send children to school, to develop their attention. We think it's to put information in their heads, which is true, teaching them how to think. But really, basically it boils down to attention, training their attention. So I'll just conclude with, I think if we're going to come to an understanding of free will, we need to make a clear distinction between these four things that I brought up. What is thinking? What is intelligence? What is consciousness? And what is attention? And understand them. And from there we have a ground to understand how free will might enter into our lives. So thank you, and God bless you all. Much love.